A lot of people say when they go onto the ketogenic diet, apart from the bad breath and the few things that come up and the brain fog for the first few days, is that they all then go, I feel fantastic, my head's clear, I'm so much more switched on. But in my mind, I'm thinking, because I'm very passionate about the gut microbiome and mental health, how is their kind of mental health and gut microbiome in the long term?
It's going to be so hard to test that. So I likewise have heard that from many people about the mental clarity. When Atkins wrote about this for his very popular diet, on the title of his book, he said, this ketogenic diet is like sex and sunshine. Those are the words. Like, really? I don't know. That somehow that just doesn't strike me. But there was a positive attribute to this. Yes, some kind of mental clarity comes out of this, which I have attributed to being so good at getting rid of added sugar and refined grain. When we did this in the ketogenic and Mediterranean diet study, they both lowered their carbs a lot, and they both really got rid of added sugars and refined grains. But the keto people did better. I can imagine that, because the keto folks were told no carbs whatsoever for the most part. And the Mediterranean folks said, no added sugars, no refined grains, but you can have this, this, and the other thing. And they slipped a little more than the keto folks. Like, if you can't have any, you are certainly not going to have a tablespoon of sugar or white flour. If you're going to go rogue for the day and deviate, you can't go that rogue. I'm going to have, a little handful of beans or a little handful of something else. And so they did so much better at that. So one of the things, if you're on a ketogenic diet and you're in ketosis, you generate a higher amount of a molecule called beta hydroxybutyrate. And it is something that you can measure by peeing on a stick that turns a color. But a better thing is a blood test. And we did this blood test on everybody. And stunningly, at least half of the people could not get into ketosis. They were still at a beta hydroxybutyrate level that was too low. Now, does this suggest a lack of adherence? And we spent a lot of time talking to the dietitians, said, yes, I'm sure for a couple of people, this is a lack of adherence. There's some people, even though we're delivering the food, they can't seem to do it. We wrote a whole separate paper on adherence. And, damn it, we bought the food, we delivered it, and they didn't eat it all. And they're humans. That's, we could study rats, and there's a downside to studying rats. So thank God they were sort of honest enough to say, even though you delivered it, we didn't eat all of it. Most of them were fairly adherent. And one of the things that we really pursued deeply, and I feel strongly about this, is the health educators from this study said, yeah, there are some people that are nailing this. They are super excited. They're super adherent. They ask lots of questions. I'm completely sure they're on board. And they did not achieve ketosis. So I think it's actually hard. You have to get so low in carb. It's harder than most people think. And then staying in ketosis is also really hard for most people. Humans are so variable. I can always find somebody that says, oh no, nailed it. I'm in ketosis. I've been doing it for years. I'm doing fine. I really think the rubber hits the road when you take a group of people and randomly assign them and say, your diet A, your diet B, or do the crossover. You get them both. And we found sort of 12 weeks on each phase, and 12 weeks later, really maybe one or two were still on a ketogenic diet out of the 40-ish people that were in the study. Everybody else, even people who had done really well at one point on study, we've got these lines in a graph that show where they go sort of from a no adherence to high adherence. When the study ended, whoop, all the lines in the keto group just plummeted.
Well, that's the biggest thing, right, about your nutritional lifestyle, because I still struggling with the word diet, because diet to me feels hyper restrictive. And so with any type of lifestyle, when you're looking at these kind of like different camps of diets, it's kind of like which one's going to be the best for you long term, because surely that's going to be the only one that you're going to reap the best health benefits from, as opposed to something that's short and sharp, because then your body goes into, it's not quite sure what's happening, and it will gain the weight, lose the weight, gain the weight, lose the weight. And that's, I think, where I feel we've got hyper confused about with nutrition. When there are new studies coming out, how can people take more of kind of a nuanced, less reductionist view to kind of the media headlines? But the biggest thing, and you'll know this from doing podcasts, the titles, the thumbnails are clickable. Yeah. People want something that they can grasp onto. How can people themselves, if they're not scientists, try to navigate this landscape? Because it is so confusing for so many people.
You should buy my book that isn't out yet, that I'm working on, because it's totally trying to...
I was going to say, why haven't I got it?
Yeah, I'm totally trying to address that. Like the first 5 chapters are stop obsessing about this. And the next 5 chapters are start embracing this. And so there's just things that we're super hung up on. You know, I really feel for people with all the nutrition information, including dis and misinformation out there. They just really like something simple. They just want to eat. They want to go to the store and shop and say, oh, I'm a savvy eater. I'm going to look for this label or this thing. God, they told me to buy low fat and that didn't work. They told me to buy organic and now I'm eating all these organic cookies. They told me to buy keto. They told me to avoid this lectins in beans. Come on, beans?
Oh yeah, can we just touch upon that, lectins? Because that was one of the things that brought up in one of my quick fire questions about brown rice. Now, I sent that to Sarah Berry and quite a few different people who were like, who is this person? And I was so shocked that the scaremongering side, and I think it's because it was sent to me by about 50 people on Instagram, all terrified to now eat brown rice because it's got lectins in. So can we now just kind of decompose the lectin discussion?
I haven't even bothered to study that because it's in... lectin is in foods that have fiber and a lot of nutrients. And it's just one of these issues that, if you looked at coffee, there's acrylamide in coffee. And about 5 years ago, there was a US judge that said all coffee now has to contain a cancer warning that coffee contains acrylamide. It made all the headlines for a while. And then somebody said, it's got 1,000 beneficial compounds in it. And it's got one thing in a small amount. If you skipped coffee for that one reason, you'd be missing the 1,000 beneficial things. And coffee is cultural and coffee is social. Why are you fear-mongering over this one thing? There are a lot of things in life that if you look really deeply into them, you could find a concerning...
Thanks so much for listening. To hear the full episode, there's a link in the description.